Chapter 1: Fragments of Another Life. The city was a graveyard made of neon. Beneath its endless hum, men whispered promises they didn't intend to keep, and the streets reeked of ambition and decay. Li Qing stood at the window of his penthouse, watching the rain blur the skyline into streaks of light and smoke. His reflection looked back at him. Sharp suit, colder eyes, a face people feared more than they admired. He had everything. Money, loyalty bought with blood, power that made governments flinch. And yet, each night when silence crept in, a dull ache bloomed in his chest. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't loneliness. It was absence, a wound carved by something or someone he couldn't name. A knock on the door broke the trance. "Boss," came Zhao's voice, his right-hand man. "The shipment's secured. No loose ends." Li Qing didn't turn. "Good. You're not sleeping again?" "I don't need sleep." Zhao hesitated, sensing the lie but smart enough not to challenge it. "We'll be ready for tomorrow's deal. Leave." When the door shut, Li Qing exhaled, slow and heavy. He poured a glass of whiskey but didn't drink it. His eyes caught the faint shimmer of the mirror across the room. The one he'd owned for years, ornate, unremarkable. Tonight, the reflection was wrong. He saw himself standing there, yes, but behind him, for a breathless second, a shadow in black robes, long hair matted with blood, eyes like dying embers. Then the glass cracked, a sound sharp enough to slice through the quiet. Li Qing flinched back, the whiskey shattering on the floor. Blood welled from a thin line across his palm. Curved, deliberate, a mark shaped like a crescent scar. He stared at it, transfixed. Something old and wordless pulsed through his veins. The moon, the sword, someone calling his name. He pressed his palm to his chest as the memory bled away. Who? The name almost slipped from his tongue. Almost. On the other side of the city, a boy woke up screaming. Mo Ran sat bolt upright in his narrow dorm bed, sweat clinging to his skin. The dream dissolved like smoke, but its weight stayed. The echo of fire, screams, the metallic scent of blood. His roommate mumbled, annoyed, "Dude, again? You gotta stop watching horror movies before bed." Mo Ran didn't answer. His throat felt raw, his chest hollow. He pushed himself up, reaching for the glass of water on the desk, but his hands were trembling. He glanced at the clock, 3 a.m. Outside, rain drummed against the window pane. He pressed his forehead to the glass, trying to catch his breath. In the faint reflection, he thought he saw a face overlay his own. Pale, older, eyes fierce and tender all at once. He blinked, and it was gone. "Get a grip. It's just a dream," he whispered to himself. He told himself that every night. It never worked. By morning, he was just another student in a sea of uniforms and noise. The university courtyard buzzed with laughter and gossip, the scent of coffee and damp earth hanging in the air. Mo Ran kept to the edges, earbuds in, backpack slung low, posture a shield against the world. "Hey, scholarship boy, forgot your manners again? Gonna ignore us, huh?" A sneering voice called. 3 of them, expensive shoes, perfect hair, rotten souls. They blocked his path near the stairwell. "Leave me alone," Mo Ran said quietly. The tallest one grinned, snatching his notes. "Oh, come on, we're just helping you lighten your load. You should be grateful." He crumpled the pages and tossed them into a puddle. Mo Ran's fists tightened, but he didn't move. There was no point. Fighting back would only make it worse. "Pathetic," one of them muttered, shoving past him. When they were gone, he crouched and picked up the soaked paper, eyes distant. He should have felt anger. Instead, all he felt was exhaustion, and a strange, hollow sadness, as if somewhere far away, another man was hurting with him. That night, the dreams returned. Li Qing walked through fog, his shoes clicking against ancient stone. Blood dripped from his fingers, and a voice echoed from beyond the mist. "Li Qing." He turned, and there he was, a man with black hair, his expression calm even in death, a sword through his chest, crimson petals falling like rain. Li Qing reached for him. "Don't." The man smiled faintly, whispering something Li Qing couldn't hear. Then he fell backward, swallowed by the abyss. Li Qing jolted awake, chest heaving. The clock read 3 a.m. again. His palm ached where the cut had been, the shape burning under his skin like a memory refusing to fade. Across the city, Mo Ren sat upright in his bed at the same time, tears streaming silently down his face. He didn't know why he was crying. Only that the emptiness in his chest had a shape now, the outline of someone lost, someone important. In the darkness, both men stared into nothing, hearts beating in the same rhythm, bound by a promise older than death itself. Somewhere deep in the spaces between dreams and memory, the world shifted, as if the universe had just remembered a story it wasn't supposed to forget. Chapter 2: The Alley Under Neon Rain. The rain started just before sunset, a fine silver mist that turned the city into a watercolor of lights. It fell quietly, soft enough to blur edges, heavy enough to hide sins. Mo ran through the puddles, one arm clutching his bag to his chest, the other holding his bruised side. His breath came sharp and ragged, ghost-white in the cold air. The laughter behind him followed like the sound of knives being drawn. "Where do you think you're going, scholarship boy?" One of the voices jeered. He didn't answer. He'd learned that words only made it worse. His shoes splashed against dirty water as he turned into a narrow side street, hoping to lose them in the maze of alleys. The neon from a half-broken sign flickered overhead, painting the walls in bleeding pink and blue. But they were faster. Hands grabbed his collar, slammed him into the wet bricks. Pain bloomed at the back of his head. His bag hit the ground, spilling books that scattered like fallen leaves. "Still acting proud, huh?" The leader sneered. He punched Mo Ran in the stomach. The breath left him in a soundless gasp. "You think because you're smart, you can look down on us? I don't." Another hit silenced him. His vision blurred, rain mixing with blood on his lip. He'd been through this before. He knew how it would end, with humiliation, bruises, and the same aching question burning in his chest. "Why me?" Then, a low voice cut through the downpour. "Enough." It wasn't loud, but it carried a tone that didn't need to shout to demand obedience. The bullies turned. A man stood at the mouth of the alley, tall, coat collar turned up against the rain, cigarette glowing faintly between his fingers. Even from a distance, his presence bent the air. Li Qing took a drag, exhaled smoke, and looked at them the way a predator regards scavengers. "I said enough." One of them scoffed. "Who the hell are you?" Li Qing's gaze didn't waver. He dropped the cigarette, crushed it under his heel. "The man you'll wish you hadn't spoken to." The next few seconds unfolded like a blur. Li Qing moved fast, precise. A twist of the wrist, a sweep of the leg, a soft thud of flesh meeting concrete. One boy's arm bent the wrong way. Another crumpled with a grunt before he even saw what hit him. By the time Mo Rant's vision steadied, the three were on the ground, groaning and cursing. Li Qing didn't even look winded. He turned toward Mo Ran, voice calm. "Get up." Mo Ran hesitated. "Who are you?" "Someone who hates seeing 3-on-1 fights, or maybe I just hate cowards," Li Qing said. He offered a hand. Mo Ran stared at it, unsure whether to take it. The man's expression was unreadable, cold but not cruel, the kind of face that carried too many secrets. Finally, Mo Ran reached out. Their palms met. The moment skin touched skin, something snapped. Not sound, memory. For a heartbeat, Mo Ran saw fire. A sword glinting red. A man kneeling in the rain, screaming his name. His heart lurched violently, pain blooming behind his eyes. He stumbled, almost falling again. Li Qing caught him by the shoulders, his grip firm, steady. The world dimmed around them, only the sound of rain remained. Their eyes met, and the air between them stilled. It wasn't recognition, not yet. But it was something ancient, a pull. Li Qing's brows furrowed, his voice low. "You!" Mo Rant's lips parted. "What?" "You remind me of someone." The words slipped out before he could stop them. He didn't know why he said it or why it hurt to say. Mo Ran froze. He wanted to ask what that meant, but Li Qing's expression had already shuddered, like a door slamming closed. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. The bullies were gone, scattering into the maze of rain. Only the two of them remained, standing in a pool of flickering light. Li Qing finally released him. "You should go home." Mo Ran nodded, dazed. "Thank you." Li Qing turned away, pulling a black umbrella from inside his coat. "Be careful who you trust. The world doesn't give second chances," he said over his shoulder. As he walked away, his reflection wavered in the puddles. Sharp features softened by rain, like an ink painting half erased. Mo Ran stood there long after he was gone, heart still pounding. His hand tingled where Li Qing had touched him. Something about that man's voice, calm, broken, struck deep in a place he hadn't known was hollow. He whispered the name that had been haunting his dreams. Li Qing. He didn't know why he said it. It simply rose from somewhere inside, aching and familiar. Far away, Li Qing paused mid-step. He looked up at the rain-smeared sky, breath misting in the cold. For no reason he could name, the sound of his own name felt like an echo, one carried by time, not air. He clenched his hand, feeling the faint scar burning under his skin again, shaped like a crescent moon. The city roared on around them, uncaring. But in that forgotten alley, under flickering neon and falling rain, a story that had ended once in blood began again. Chapter 3: Names That Taste Like Memory. Li Qing couldn't forget him. He told himself it was just curiosity. The boy from the alley, bruised and quiet, standing under the rain like a ghost that refused to fade. But days passed, and the memory of that gaze wouldn't leave him. Those eyes, wide, uncertain, and familiar in a way that twisted his chest. By the third night, he gave in. "Find everything about him," he told Zhao, sliding a photo across the table. It was grainy, taken from the alley's security footage. Mo Ran's face tilted in shock, rain dripping from his lashes. Zhao raised a brow. "You're getting sentimental, boss?" Li Qing shot him a look that could cut glass. "Just do it." Zhao swallowed his smirk. "Name's Mo Ran, university scholarship kid. No family, no connections. Smart as hell. Keeps to himself." Li Qing's fingers tapped against the desk. "No family. Yeah, orphan young. Bounces between dorms and part-time jobs. Nothing special except that he's what? Except that he looks a bit like you when you were younger." Li Qing froze, the faintest crack in his expression. "Get out." When he was alone again, he leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He told himself it didn't matter. But that night, the dreams returned. He stood in a field of red blossoms beneath a blood-colored sky. A sword glinted in his hand, slick with crimson. A man in black turned toward him, eyes burning like dying stars. "Li Qing," the man whispered. The voice broke something inside him. He reached forward, but the figure crumbled into ash. The air smelled of iron and sorrow. Li Qing jolted awake, gasping. His sheets were tangled, sweat cold against his back. He stared at the ceiling, the name echoing in his head, Mo Ran. Though he didn't remember saying it, Mo Ran hadn't slept well either. Every night since the alley, his dreams had been sharper, clearer. A dark cliff, falling petals, someone shouting his name with such desperation it made his chest ache. He sat up, running a hand through his hair. His heart wouldn't stop racing. The clock read 5:40 a.m. He had class in 2 hours, a part-time shift after that, and a paper due at midnight. But none of it mattered as much as that voice echoing in his skull. Li Qing. He pressed a hand to his lips. He'd spoken the name in his sleep again. His roommate said he'd been calling it like a prayer. "Who are you? And why does it hurt when I think of you?" He whispered into the gray morning light. Fate, it seemed, wasn't done playing tricks. 3 days later, it rained again. Mo Ran ducked into a cafe near campus, soaked from head to toe, clutching his laptop bag. The place was crowded, warmth fogging the windows, the scent of coffee heavy in the air. He ordered a black coffee and found the last empty seat, across from a man in a dark suit, reading the news on his phone. Mind if I? The man looked up. For a second, Mo Ran forgot how to breathe. You. Li Qing's lips curved faintly. Small world. Mo Ran's pulse spiked. What are you doing here? Drinking coffee. That's not what I meant. Li Qing's gaze didn't waver. Maybe I wanted to make sure you weren't getting yourself beaten again. Mo Ran frowned, but the heat rising in his cheeks betrayed him. I didn't ask for your help. I didn't ask for your gratitude. A silence settled, thick and strange. The barista called out an order. Mo Ran, black coffee. And Li Qing was already standing. He took the cup before Mo Ran could move, set it on the table, and slipped a bill into the barista's tip jar. Mo Ran blinked. You didn't have to. I wanted to. Why? Li Qing's answer was simple, quiet. Because I can. Mo Ran glared, though it lacked conviction. You think money can buy everything, don't you? No, not everything. Li Qing said, his tone unreadable. He stirred his own coffee, watching the swirl of cream fade into black. There are some things even I can't buy back. Something in his voice, raw, distant, made Mo Ran's chest tighten. He didn't know why, but he wanted to reach across the table, to ask who had hurt this man so deeply. Instead, he looked away. You're strange. Li Qing smiled faintly, a shadow of warmth. You have no idea. They sat in uneasy silence after that, the hum of rain and clinking cups filling the space between them. Mo Ran pretended to read. Li Qing pretended to scroll. But both kept stealing glances, studying faces that felt like home and heartbreak at once. When Mo Ran finally stood to leave, Li Qing said quietly, Be careful walking at night. This city eats the weak. I'm not weak. I know. The words came so softly that Mo Ran barely heard them, and yet they stayed with him all night. That evening, the dreams came again. In one, Mo Ran stood before a man cloaked in black, moonlight bleeding across his face. The man smiled, sadness woven into it. If we meet again, don't forgive me too easily, he whispered. Mo Ran reached for him, whispering, Li Qing. He woke with tears on his cheeks. Across the city, Li Qing stirred from his own restless sleep, the same name escaping his lips like a confession. Both lay in darkness, hearts racing in the same rhythm, whispering names that tasted like memory. Names they had no right to remember, and yet couldn't forget. Chapter 4: The sound of a gun, the sound of a sword. Rain fell hard that night, sharp, silver threads cutting through the dark. The city's neon signs flickered like wounded hearts, painting the streets in fractured color. Li Qing walked through it all, his black coat soaked, his face unreadable. Behind him, gunfire cracked through the air, a war song between empires of greed and vengeance. Boss, go! Shouted one of his men, dragging another wounded soldier behind cover. Li Qing didn't answer. He turned, raised his pistol and fired 3 shots into the shadows. Each one hit its mark with cold precision. The alley filled with the metallic scent of blood and rain. Tell them, he murmured, his voice low and icy. This city already belongs to the dead. But before he could move again, a sharp pain tore through his side. The world tilted. He pressed a hand to his ribs and felt the warmth of blood spilling between his fingers. A bullet had found him, clean, deep, cruel. His men shouted his name, but he waved them off. Retreat. Boss. Go. He staggered into the deeper shadows, every step echoing with the ghost of a memory. Red petals, a cliff, and a man falling into his arms. The sound of a sword striking flesh. The same helplessness. The same pain. On the other side of the city, Mo Ran had stayed late in the library. His professor's words about perseverance and excellence still echoed in his head as he walked home through the rain. His thin jacket clung to him, shoes squelching with every step. He took a shortcut, a narrow alley glowing faintly under a flickering streetlight. He was halfway through when he froze. There, slumped against the wall, was a man. Blood dark against the pavement, hand trembling as he tried to light a cigarette. Mo Ran's heart lurched. He rushed over before his mind could stop him. "Sir, are you? Oh my God, you're bleeding." The man looked up. Even in the dim light, Mo Ran recognized the sharp line of his jaw, the dark hair plastered to his forehead. "Li Qing." Li Qing gave a faint smirk. "You again. You need a hospital. Too many questions." He coughed, blood staining his lips. Mo Ran's hands shook as he pressed them to the wound. "Shut up. You'll bleed out if you keep talking." Li Qing laughed softly, the sound more pained than amused. "You sound like him." "Like who?" He didn't answer. His eyes fluttered, unfocused, as if looking through Mo Ran, at someone else entirely. "Temple of Echoing Blood," he murmured. Mo Ran froze. "What did you just say?" His heartbeat thundered in his ears. That name, he didn't know it, and yet he did. Li Qing's fingers twitched, reaching toward his face. His voice dropped to a whisper, rough and breaking. "Mo Ran." The world tilted. Mo Ran's breath caught. How do you know my name?" But Li Qing had already gone still, his hand falling limp, his head slumping against the wall. For a heartbeat, there was only the rain, and the sound of Mo Ran's pulse roaring in his skull. He stared at the unconscious man, panic and something else. Something deeper, older, twisting inside him. He wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But his hands wouldn't move, because the moment Li Qing had said his name, something inside Mo Ran had cracked open. Images flooded him. Red petals falling through smoke, a dark temple pulsing with light, his own hands covered in blood. A voice calling his name, not from this world, but another. "Why do you stay?" "Because you're the only one worth following." Mo Ran gasped, pressing his palms to his temples. "What is this?" Tears blurred his vision. His chest ached, an impossible grief rising from nowhere. He looked at Li Qing, the powerful man he'd thought a stranger, and for the first time, he felt like he'd found something he'd lost lifetimes ago. But how could that be? He ripped off his scarf, pressing it over the wound to slow the bleeding. "Don't you dare die here," he muttered, voice shaking. He dragged Li Qing's arm over his shoulder, grunting with effort. The man was heavy, taller, and every step left a trail of blood. But Mo Ran didn't stop. He didn't even question why he was doing it. He only knew that if he left this man here, he'd never forgive himself. By the time he reached the empty apartment above his part-time cafe job, his arms were trembling. He laid Li Qing on the couch, panting, hair plastered to his forehead. "Damn you," he whispered, wiping sweat from his brow. "Why do I feel like I've carried you before?" The rain outside softened into a steady drizzle. Li Qing's breathing steadied, slow but shallow. Mo Ran sat beside him, fingers brushing against the bloodied bandages. His heart ached with a pain that had no name, a longing he shouldn't have felt. "Li Qing," he murmured. As if in answer, Li Qing stirred faintly in his sleep, lips parting just enough to whisper a word that made Mo Ran's breath hitch. "Stay." Mo Ran's eyes burned. He clenched his fists, whispering back, "I'm not going anywhere." Outside, thunder rolled across the city. A low, distant echo of something ancient. The sound of a gun fading into the sound of a sword. And somewhere, in the space between lifetimes, the bond that once ended in blood began again. Fragile, inevitable, and waiting to ignite. Chapter 5. The past starts to bite. The days after that night blurred into uneasy quiet. Li Qing healed fast, faster than he should have. A man like him didn't have time to stay still, not even after a bullet. But something about the boy who had carried him from the rain lingered in his mind like smoke that wouldn't clear. Mo Ran, a name that burned at the edge of every thought. At the same time, Mo Ran's life began to unravel. He'd missed classes, late from tending to the mysterious wounded man in his apartment. When he returned to university, his professors' looks were sharper, and the whispers followed him like gnats. "You think you're better than us, orphan boy?" One of his classmates sneered near the lockers. "Scholarship trash," another muttered, shoving his books to the ground. Mo Ran ignored them as he always did. He bent to gather his papers, forcing his voice to stay calm. "Get out of my way." But the laughter didn't stop. Not until one of them grabbed his collar and hissed, "You should remember your place." The next morning, those same bullies didn't show up for class. By noon, the rumor spread like wildfire. They'd been found beaten senseless in an alley, faces swollen beyond recognition. No one knew who'd done it, but everyone knew better than to ask. That night, Mo Ran stormed into the side building of a luxurious nightclub, Li Qing's known domain. He found him there, sitting behind a glass desk, black shirt half unbuttoned, the low light catching the silver ring on his finger. He looked every inch the king of shadows, composed, dangerous, untouchable. "You sent your men after them." Li Qing didn't look up immediately. He finished signing a document, his tone smooth and unreadable. "You were being harassed. I handled it." "Handled it?" "They're in the hospital." Mo Ran slammed his hand on the desk, trembling with anger. Li Qing finally met his eyes, calm, dark, and unflinching. "And if they touched you again, they'd be in the ground." Problem solved. Mo Ran took a step back, his pulse hammering. "You can't fix everything by violence." The words hung in the air, sharp, too familiar. Li Qing froze. Something flickered behind his expression. A memory buried deep. A voice, faint and far away. "You can't fix everything by violence, Mo Ran." That same sentence, but reversed. A different world. A cliff painted red. He blinked, breath catching. Mo Ran noticed the change and frowned. "What's wrong?" Li Qing exhaled slowly, setting down his pen. "Nothing." Mo Ran folded his arms, still angry but confused now. "You scare people like it's nothing. Do you even care what happens to them?" "I care what happens to you." The answer came too easily, too raw. Mo Ran's lips parted, but no sound came. There was something in Li Qing's voice, a depth of emotion that didn't make sense, like the words had been lived before. "You barely know me," Mo Ran said finally. Li Qing's gaze softened, but only for a moment. "Maybe, but my instincts rarely lie." Silence stretched between them. The music from the club pulsed faintly through the walls, a slow, mournful rhythm. Mo Ran looked away, his chest tight. "You can't just hurt people for me. I didn't do it for you. I did it because seeing anyone touch you made me angry." Li Qing murmured. Mo Ran turned to leave, his voice shaking. "That's not an excuse." "Maybe not, but it's the truth." Li Qing's tone dropped, quiet and dangerous. Mo Ran stopped in the doorway, the rain outside throwing silver light over his face. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The tension between them felt electric, unspoken, half-remembered. Finally, Mo Ran said, "Stay out of my life." Li Qing leaned back in his chair, smiling faintly. "You say that like it's an option." Mo Ran's breath hitched. The same words, the same tone. He didn't know why his heart hurt hearing them. When he left, slamming the door behind him, Li Qing stayed seated for a long time. The silence pressed down like smoke. His hand brushed against the faint scar on his side, the wound from the bullet now healed, and a chill ran through him. He closed his eyes. Images came unbidden. A dark temple, blood on marble, a hand reaching for his face. A voice, soft, steady, and heartbreakingly familiar, whispering, Why would you stay?" Li Qing's eyes snapped open. His breathing came shallow. He stared at the rain streaking the window and whispered the name that now haunted both his waking and sleeping hours. Mo Ran. Across the city, Mo Ran couldn't sleep. He tossed under the sheets, his chest tight with anger, confusion, and something nameless that refused to fade. When he finally drifted off, the dreams returned. Fire and blades. A man's face half hidden in shadow, calling his name over and over again. This time he didn't wake crying. He woke shaking, with the unbearable certainty that whoever that man was, that man once loved him enough to die for him. Chapter 6. The Kiss of Recognition. The night was drowning in rain. The city shimmered beneath it, glass and steel reflecting lightning, the streets alive with noise and loneliness. Li Qing gripped the steering wheel with one hand, the other pressed to his temple. His heart was a drumbeat too loud, too fast, out of rhythm with the world. The dreams had returned. Again and again. A crimson cliff, a sword falling, a man's voice breaking as he cried his name. Every time he woke gasping, reaching for someone who wasn't there. Someone he'd already lost once. He didn't remember when he'd started driving. Maybe he just needed to escape his own silence. Maybe instinct was guiding him somewhere he didn't understand. The car slowed when he saw the figure by the bus stop. A thin boy, soaked through, sitting on the curb with his head in his hands. Mo ran. The sight twisted something deep in Li Qing's chest. He stopped the car before thinking, stepped out into the rain, and the cold hit him like a punishment. Mo ran. The boy lifted his head, startled. His eyes were red, lips pale. Li Qing, what are you doing out here? Mo ran let out a small laugh, hollow and tired. Missed the last bus. Liar. Mo ran blinked. Excuse me? Li Qing stepped closer, his voice low, edged with something he couldn't contain. You look like you've been crying for hours. Tell me who hurt you. Mo ran shook his head, water dripping from his hair. You can't fix everything by violence, remember? The words struck him again, like a blade turned inward. Those same words, but from his own voice, from another life. Li Qing's chest ached. He exhaled slowly and shrugged off his coat, draping it over Mo Ran's shoulders. Come on, you'll freeze out here. Mo Ran hesitated, but when he saw the rare softness in Li Qing's eyes, he nodded wordlessly. They walked until they found an empty awning under a half-lit shop sign. The city lights blurred around them, neon bleeding into the mist. Li Qing leaned against the wall, lighting a cigarette that barely stayed lit in the damp air. Why do you keep ending up in the rain? Mo Ran gave a faint smile. Maybe I like the sound. Li Qing studied him through the smoke. The curve of his mouth, the tremor in his fingers. Every little detail felt known. Not like something new, but remembered. Your eyes, they haven't changed, he said quietly. Mo Ran frowned. Changed from what? Li Qing didn't answer. His hand reached out before he could stop himself, brushing a strand of wet hair from Mo Ran's cheek. The boy flinched, then didn't move away. The moment stretched, fragile as glass. Li Qing's fingertips lingered, tracing the line of Mo Ran's jaw, and then it hit him. Not a memory, a flood. Flashes tore through his mind. Mo Ran's body cradled in his arms, the scent of iron and ash, blood soaking into red petals. A dying whisper. You were the only one who never betrayed me. Li Qing staggered, breath catching. His cigarette dropped into the puddle, extinguished instantly. Mo Ran reached forward, startled. Li Qing? What's wrong? Li Qing's hand shot out, gripping Mo Ran's wrist. Not hard, but desperate. It's you. What are you talking about? He stared at him like a man possessed. Blood Moon Cliff. You died in my arms. Mo Ran's eyes widened, terror flickering across his face. Stop. You're scaring me. I swore I'd never let you die again. Before Mo Ran could speak, Li Qing pulled him closer. Sudden, reckless, inevitable. His lips crashed against Mo Ran's, rainwater and warmth and trembling breath all at once. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't planned. It was a kiss born from lifetimes of regret. A storm breaking after centuries of silence. Mo Ran froze, eyes wide, but his heart betrayed him, beating faster, answering something ancient. Li Qing's hands cupped his face, thumb brushing his cheek with heartbreaking care even as the kiss deepened. Rough, hungry, aching with loss and possession. When he finally tore away, both of them were breathless. Mo Ran's voice shook. Why did you do that? Li Qing looked at him. Rain sliding down his face, eyes burning with something between fury and devotion. Because I lost you once, and I'll burn this world before I lose you again. He said, voice raw. The words were low, desperate, absolute. They were a vow and a confession all at once. Mo Ran's heart twisted painfully. I don't understand. You will? Li Qing murmured, brushing his thumb over his lower lip. For a long time neither spoke. The rain softened, a quiet rhythm around them. Mo Ran's breath hitched, and though his mind screamed to pull away, his body leaned into the warmth, the only warmth that made sense. I should hate you, he whispered. Li Qing's voice was barely a breath. Then hate me close. Lightning flashed behind them, and for a heartbeat, the world shimmered. Not rain-soaked city streets, but a blood-red sky, petals falling like ash. Then it was gone. Mo Ran pressed a trembling hand to his chest. He didn't know what was happening, only that every time Li Qing looked at him, it hurt to breathe, and yet, somehow it felt like coming home. Chapter 7: The Pull of Two Souls. Sleep no longer brought peace to Mo Ran, only chaos. Every night, fragments tore through him like shards of broken glass. A temple drowning in fire, screams echoing through crimson mist, swords clashing beneath a blood-soaked moon. Sometimes, in the middle of it all, he saw a shadow tall, cloaked in darkness, fighting for him, dying for him. And always that same voice. Because you're the only one worth following. He woke gasping, his sheets tangled, hands shaking as if blood still clung to them. He pressed his palms to his face, whispering, I'm going insane. Days passed, but reality felt thinner now, stretched between worlds. He avoided Li Qing at first, afraid of the strange pull between them, afraid of the way his chest tightened every time those dark eyes met his. But Li Qing didn't let him vanish. Wherever he turned, Li Qing was there. Outside the campus gates, leaning against his car, silent but watching. At first it irritated Mo Ran, then it terrified him, then it comforted him. No one dared to touch him anymore. Not after the rumor spread that the boy under Li Qing's protection was untouchable. Still, Mo Ran didn't know how to breathe around him. One evening, he found Li Qing waiting at the entrance of his apartment building. You're following me again, Mo Ran said, trying to sound annoyed. Li Qing's voice was calm, but his gaze was heavy with something unreadable. You don't take care of yourself. I don't need a babysitter. You need someone who won't let you fall apart. Mo Ran opened his mouth to retort, but the words wouldn't come. There was something in Li Qing's tone, something so familiar it hurt. Later, in Mo Ran's kitchen, the air was quiet but alive with tension. Mo Ran was cooking noodles, badly, and Li Qing stood beside him, sleeves rolled up, watching with faint amusement. You're terrible at this, Li Qing murmured. Mo Ran glared, flipping the noodles with more force than necessary. Sorry, I don't run a mafia empire. Some of us have to make our own food. Li Qing smirked, reaching past him to take the spatula. Their shoulders brushed, just enough to make Mo Ran's breath catch. I wasn't mocking you. I just don't remember the last time I stood this close to someone and didn't feel the urge to pull a trigger. Li Qing said, his voice softer now. Mo Ran looked up. The honesty in that sentence undid him. Li Qing handed him the bowl when it was done, then noticed the faint bandage on Mo Ran's hand. A small cut from the night before. His brows furrowed. What happened here? It's nothing. Li Qing caught his wrist, pulling it gently toward him. It's not nothing. He unwrapped the bandage with careful fingers, his touch strangely reverent. When he brushed antiseptic over the small wound, Mo Ran hissed. Don't move, Li Qing said. I can do it myself. I know, but let me. For a moment, Mo Ran didn't fight him. The world narrowed to the warmth of Li Qing's hands and the strange steadiness in his eyes, the kind of steadiness that felt earned over centuries, not days. When he finally let go, Mo Ran whispered, Why are you like this with me? Li Qing paused. Because every time I see you hurt, it feels like I'm watching it happen again. Again. Li Qing's gaze darkened. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Mo Ran stared at him, his pulse unsteady. Try me. But Li Qing only smiled faintly and changed the subject. That night, Mo Ran couldn't sleep. He sat on the couch, the bowl of half-eaten noodles beside him, and stared at the faint scar on his hand. He didn't understand why the bandage made him feel something close to warmth, or why Li Qing's voice haunted every corner of his mind. When he closed his eyes, the dreams returned, clearer this time. He saw Li Qing, but not as the man he knew now. His hair was tied high, his robes torn and bloodied, eyes burning with the same fierce devotion he'd seen in fleeting glimpses. Mo ran. No, the man he had been was dying in his arms. Li Qing's voice echoed in the dream. If I could live again, I'd find you sooner, hold you longer, love you right. Mo Ran woke up crying. The next day, Li Qing showed up again, wordless, bringing food, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Mo Ran didn't protest. He just sat on the couch, shoulders tense. Finally, he said, "Do you ever dream?" Li Qing glanced at him. "Every night." "What do you see?" "Fire," Li Qing said quietly. "And you?" The words were so simple, so bare, that Mo Ran looked away immediately. His throat tightened. "You sound crazy." Li Qing gave a small, humorless smile. "Maybe I am." He reached out, brushing Mo Ran's hair from his eyes. The touch was light, trembling. "But I know what I feel when I see you, and I've lived too long in violence to mistake this for coincidence." Mo Ran wanted to deny it, to say that he was imagining things, that Li Qing's obsession was just the madness of a man too deep in blood. But when their eyes met, he felt it too, the echo, the pull, the unbearable gravity of something older than this life. He whispered, "If what you're saying is true, then what are we supposed to do with it?" Li Qing's hand lingered on his face. "Whatever it takes to not lose each other again." The silence that followed was soft but sharp, a fragile space between fear and longing. Outside, the rain began again, steady against the windows. Inside, two souls, bound by lifetimes of pain and promise, sat inches apart, unable to move closer, unable to let go. And somewhere deep in their shared blood, the past stirred awake, whispering of the storm yet to come. Chapter 8: The Return of the Demon's Shadow. The rain that night didn't fall. It poured, slicing the air like 1,000 thin knives. Li Qing stood in the middle of the warehouse floor, surrounded by men whose names didn't matter. Their trembling guns and hurried excuses dissolved under the quiet precision of his gaze. He wasn't shouting. He didn't need to. His empire was built not from chaos, but from silence. Mo Ran shouldn't have been there. He had come only to return a forgotten coat. Li Qing's, the one left draped over his chair after another night spent watching over him. He told himself it was nothing, just gratitude, just decency. But what he walked into wasn't decency. It was execution. Li Qing's voice was low, deadly calm. "You sold information to the police. You made me kill my own men." The traitor, a middle-aged man with shaking hands, fell to his knees. "Boss, I didn't." The gunshot drowned his words. No hesitation, no mercy. Mo Ran froze in the doorway. The echo of the bullet slammed through him, too close. For a moment, he didn't see Li Qing in a blood-stained suit. He saw him in black robes, eyes burning under a crimson moon, standing before a pile of corpses that had once been called righteous. The same calm, the same cruelty, the same man who had burned the world for love. Li Qing turned slightly, sensing the gaze. When he saw Mo Ran, pale, wide-eyed, something unreadable flickered across his expression. "Mo Ran, you shouldn't be here," he said softly, lowering the gun. The world tilted. Mo Ran couldn't speak. His throat felt full of smoke. "You killed him," he finally whispered. Li Qing didn't flinch. "He betrayed me. But it's survival." "You sound like..." Mo Ran stopped himself. But the image had already surfaced. Of fire, of death, of the man whose face Li Qing's now mirrored too closely. Li Qing stepped closer, voice steady but heavy with unspoken things. "I told you my world isn't kind. Everything I've done to keep control. If I lose that, they'll destroy me, and everyone around me." "Everyone around you? You mean me?" Mo Ran's laugh cracked. Li Qing didn't answer. That silence said more than any confession. The warehouse stank of gunpowder and fear. The dead man's blood crept slowly toward Mo Rant's shoes, and the metallic scent clawed at his memory. He saw flashes again. Temples burning, disciples screaming. His own sword falling from his hand while his shadow fought for him. And then his shadow's voice. You were the only one who never betrayed me. Mo Ran staggered back, clutching his head. No, no, it's not real. This isn't happening again. Li Qing's hand reached for him, but Mo Ran stepped away like the touch would burn. Don't, I can't look at you like this. I can't, he said, voice breaking. Li Qing stopped where he was. His fingers curled, nails biting into his palm. He could have followed. He could have explained. But he knew that look, the fear, the trembling disbelief. He had seen it once before, lifetimes ago, right before the cliff, right before blood and parting and loss. And he knew how fate liked to play its cruelest joke, by making them find each other only to rip them apart again. Mo ran until the city blurred into a storm of lights. His lungs burned, his vision swam. He ended up by the river, cold, shaking, gripping the edge of a railing like it was the only thing keeping him alive. Every sound was too loud. Every flash of lightning tore open another fragment of memory. The sex, the fire, the cliff. Li Qing's face twisted in grief, then rage. The sword through the heart, his own death. And now here, the same man, different time. Same devotion, same darkness. He whispered into the storm, voice cracking. Why do you always find me like this? Why can't you just let me live? But no answer came, only thunder. Back at the warehouse, Li Qing stood alone. The others were gone. The body removed, the blood mopped away, but the silence still stank of guilt. He leaned against the cold wall, staring at his hand, the one that pulled the trigger. He had done it 1,000 times before. But tonight, it felt like killing a piece of himself. He thought of Mo Rant's eyes. Not angry, not disgusted, but hurt. And that hurt was worse than any bullet wound he'd ever taken. He tilted his head back, eyes closing. The rain started again, tapping softly on the cracked windows, like a ghost knocking to be let in. He whispered into the emptiness. I said I'd follow you anywhere, even into hell. His voice trembled. You just don't remember. For days they didn't see each other. Mo Ran skipped class. Li Qing stayed buried in his empire. Yet both were haunted by the same dreams. Flashes of the past life replaying over and over, more vivid each night. In Mo Rant's dreams, Li Qing was no longer just the shadow. He was bleeding and unrepentant, whispering love through crimson air. And Mo Ran, even when he woke shaking, couldn't deny the truth tightening around his heart. No matter how far he ran, fate was patient. It would always wait for him to turn back. For now, though, he stayed away, trembling, unsure whether he was running from Li Qing or from himself. And Li Qing, in the heart of his empire of shadows, didn't chase him. He simply waited, his hand always near the gun, his heart always near the wound. Because he always knew, that the story of their souls never ended with running. It only ever began again when one turned around. Chapter 9: The Price of Remembering. The nightmare began as fire. Flames licked the edge of the temple, devouring wood, silk, and screams. Mo Ran stood in the middle of the inferno, his blade dripping with blood that wasn't his. Above him, the sky split open, red as a wound, full of falling petals that smelled like ash. And through it all, he heard that voice again. Mo Ran, don't leave me. He turned, and there was Li Qing. Not in his tailored suit, not in the body he knew now, but cloaked in black, eyes wild with grief and power. The same man who had held him as he died. The same man who had cursed heaven itself for taking him. Mo Ran tried to speak, but the fire surged, swallowing his words. He screamed and woke. The lecture hall blurred in his vision. He was still half in the dream, half in another life. His chest felt too tight, his breath coming too fast. Mo Ran. The professor's voice faded as he clutched at his desk, the world tilting violently. He saw the cliff, the sword, Li Qing's hand slick with blood. Li Qing, he whispered, before darkness swallowed him whole. When he opened his eyes again, the ceiling wasn't the one he knew. It was darker, softer, bathed in dim light. A familiar scent hung in the air, faintly metallic, faintly smoke. And there he was. Li Qing sat beside the bed, still in his blood-streaked shirt, his jacket discarded. Eyes fixed on Mo ran like the world would end if he blinked. For hours he hadn't moved. He'd carried Mo ran out of that university, ignoring the whispers, ignoring the blood seeping from his own reopened wound. None of it mattered. Only him. Mo ran stirred, voice hoarse. You found me again. Li Qing's breath caught. I never stopped. The silence that followed was fragile, trembling like glass. Then Mo ran said, I remember. Li Qing's eyes widened, the words landing like a blade to the heart. What do you mean? Mo ran pushed himself up slowly, trembling. The fire, the cliff, the temple, the sword. You were there. You killed for me. You were my shadow. His voice cracked. Li Qing reached out instinctively, cupping the back of his head, pressing their foreheads together. His voice was low, rough. Yes, I was, and I always will be. The dam broke. Mo Ran's tears fell freely now, hot and trembling. I thought it was just dreams. I thought I was going insane. You're not? Li Qing murmured, his thumb brushing his cheek. It's real. All of it. The pain. The blood. The vows. You were mine once. Mo Ran's breath hitched. His heart hammered painfully, torn between fear and something dangerously close to relief. Then why do I remember dying? Li Qing's voice cracked. Because you did. He could still see it, even now. Mo Ran's blood on his hands, the sound of his last breath, the way his body went limp against him as the sex surrounded them. He'd held him until the world burned down. I failed you, Li Qing whispered. And after you left, I destroyed everything just to follow. Mo Ran's fingers trembled as they reached for his hand. You didn't fail me. Yes, I did. You died because I could not protect you. Li Qing said, the words like broken glass. Mo Ran shook his head, tears streaking down his pale face. Then why does it hurt less when you're near? The air between them grew heavy, thick with the pull of centuries. Mo Ran's heart felt like it would burst from his chest. The scent of rain mixed with smoke, past and present folding into one unbearable moment. Li Qing's hand cupped his cheek, thumb tracing the line of a tear. I've taken what you couldn't after you left, all those sex, all of them. I burned them down, so, will you forgive me? Mo Ran met his gaze. His eyes, dark and wet, reflected the same torment Li Qing carried in silence. No, I think I've always loved you, even when I shouldn't have. He whispered. Something broke inside Li Qing then. An ache too deep to name, too long denied. He leaned forward and their lips met. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was years of grief, centuries of separation, and the desperate hunger of two souls who had clawed their way through death just to touch again. Mo Ran's fingers twisted into Li Qing's shirt, pulling him closer. Li Qing's hands slid to the back of his neck, holding him like he'd vanish if he let go. When they finally parted, both were breathless, foreheads pressed together, the taste of salt and blood between them. Li Qing's voice was low, unsteady. I lost you once. Never again. Mo Ran closed his eyes, shaking. Then don't let go. They didn't. The storm outside broke against the windows, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, the world fell silent around them. There was no war, no sex, no betrayal. Just 2 men, holding each other like they could rewrite fate with their touch. In that moment, the past didn't haunt them. It ached. It breathed. And for the first time since Blood Moon Cliff, both of them felt alive. Chapter 10 Fire, Blood, and Forgiveness. The city burned again. Different era, same scent. Smoke, iron, the sharp tang of blood and rain. Li Qing moved through it like a shadow carved from violence. His men trailed behind, masked and armed, slipping through the docks where the last enemy syndicate was making its stand. A war he had started, a war he would end. But this time he went alone. He hadn't told Mo Ran where he was going. He couldn't. The boy had only just begun to breathe again after the storm of memory. How could he throw him into another inferno? He told himself this was mercy. But mercy had never suited him. Mo Ran didn't stay behind. He couldn't. Ever since that night, since the kiss that pulled the past back into the present, he had been caught in Li Qing's gravity again, unable to pull away. Every part of him screamed that it was reckless, that their bond had already destroyed them once. And yet, when he woke to an empty bed and a note that only said, "Don't wait up," something in him broke. So he followed. Quietly. Rain poured hard as he crossed the streets, his thin coat useless against the chill. He tracked the gunfire to the docks, where flashes of light tore through the dark like lightning. And then he saw him, Li Qing, drenched, blood-stained, surrounded by corpses, fighting with that same terrifying grace that belonged to another lifetime. His movements were familiar, every strike echoing the same rhythm he once used to wield the heaven-crushing blade. It was beautiful. It was horrifying. Mo Ran's breath hitched as the scene warped. Gunfire turning to swords, the docks to Blood Moon Cliff. The memories layered until he couldn't tell what century he was standing in. And then someone raised a gun behind Li Qing. Li Qing! Mo Ran's scream tore out before he could think. Li Qing turned, too slow. The shot rang out, and Mo Ran moved. The bullet tore through his shoulder. The impact sent him crashing into Li Qing's chest. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then the blood began to spill warm, too warm, down Li Qing's hands. He froze. It was the same spot, the same crimson bloom spreading across white skin, the same nightmare reborn. Mo Ran, Li Qing whispered, voice breaking. No, 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 not again. Mo Ran managed a faint smile, breath ragged. Li Qing's scream was not human. It was grief-given sound. He turned, eyes dark and wild, and the men still standing didn't even have time to aim. He killed them all, swift, brutal, efficient. Bullets found throats and hearts. By the time the echoes faded, the dock was silent except for the rain. He dropped the gun and caught Mo Ran before he fell. Why? Why would you do that? Li Qing's voice trembled as he pressed his hands to the wound, his breath uneven. Mo Ran winced, his fingers brushing Li Qing's cheek. Because I couldn't watch it happen again. You can't die twice, not for me. I won't. I can't lose you again. Li Qing choked out. Mo Ran laughed weakly. Then stop fighting alone. Li Qing's heart twisted. He'd built his empire from solitude, from ashes, from the lie that strength meant isolation. But here, in his arms, was proof that every wall he built only led him back to this, holding the only person he could never protect. He pulled Missouri Ran close, their foreheads pressed together under the rain. If you die, I die too. Do you understand? There's no life left without you. They stayed like that for a long time. Two souls broken in different centuries, piecing each other together with trembling hands. The rain washed the blood away, but not the ache. When the sirens began to wail in the distance, Li Qing lifted Mo Ran carefully into his arms. His men, returning late, froze at the sight. None dared speak. Get the car now, Li Qing ordered, voice cold again but eyes burning. As the car roared away, Li Qing held Mo Ran against his chest, fingers tracing his pulse, as if to keep it tethered to the world. Chapter 11, 1,000 Ways to Say, I love you. The world was quiet after the storm. For the first time in years, Li Qing's house didn't smell like gunpowder or whiskey. It smelled like broth. Steam rose from the small kitchen, curling through the dim light of morning. Li Qing stood awkwardly by the stove, sleeves rolled up, trying to follow a recipe from a phone. He kept glancing at like it was a bomb ready to explode. He was terrible at this. He'd killed men more easily than he'd managed to boil noodles. But every time he heard Mo Ran's soft breathing from the bedroom, every time he imagined those pale fingers clutching the sheets in pain, he found himself trying anyway, because for once, there was no one to kill, only someone to care for. Mo Ran woke to the faint clatter of dishes. His shoulder still ached, but the wound had started to heal. He blinked toward the half-open door and watched Li Qing move in the kitchen. Large, lethal hands fumbling with chopsticks, his brow furrowed in concentration. The sight made something twist in his chest. He'd seen those same hands once drenched in blood, once holding a sword under a red moon. And now they were trembling over a bowl of noodles. "Are you trying to burn the house down?" Mo Rant's voice was soft but teasing. Li Qing turned, startled. "You're awake." "Barely. What are you doing?" Mo Ran asked, shifting to sit up. "Cooking. You need to eat." Mo Rant's lips curved into the faintest smile. "You cook." "I learn fast," Li Qing muttered, which was a lie. The noodles were already overcooked, but Mo Ran ate them anyway. Later, they sat by the window. The city stretched beneath them, bathed in amber light. Li Qing leaned back against the couch, one arm draped over Mo Rant's shoulders. For a long time, neither spoke. It wasn't the silence of tension anymore. It was the kind that felt earned. Mo Ran broke it first. "Do you ever think about it? The past life?" Li Qing's gaze shifted toward the skyline. "Every night. Sometimes it feels like I never left that cliff." "I used to think it was a curse," Moran said. "It was until it wasn't," Li Qing said. Their eyes met. Mo Rant's voice trembled. "You destroyed yourself for me. And you died for me. We both paid our price. Maybe now we get to live." Li Qing replied. Mo Ran looked down at their intertwined fingers. "Maybe living means this. Cooking terrible noodles. Watching the city. Breathing the same air." Mo Ran smiled faintly. "And kissing?" Li Qing's eyes darkened. The kiss that followed wasn't desperate like before. It wasn't born of blood or nightmares. It was slow, a promise in motion. Li Qing's hand slid behind Mo Rant's neck, his thumb tracing the line of his jaw as their lips met, soft and deep. Mo Ran melted into it, one hand gripping the front of Li Qing's shirt as if afraid to wake up from this quiet. Li Qing kissed him again and again. Small, reverent touches that tasted like warmth instead of regret. Between each breath, he whispered things that didn't sound like words but felt like vows. "You're here. I'm real. I won't let go." When they finally broke apart, Mo Rant's lips were trembling, his eyes glossy. "You've changed," he whispered. Li Qing smiled faintly. "You haven't." Mo Ran tilted his head. "Is that good or bad?" Li Qing leaned in again, pressing a kiss to his temple. "It's you. That's enough." Days turned into weeks. Li Qing's empire stabilized. The violence didn't vanish overnight. It never could, but the edge of madness had dulled. He still handled his affairs with ruthless precision, but now he came home before midnight. Sometimes Mo Ran would be reading by the window, the lamplight pooling around him, and Li Qing would just stand there for a while, watching. They learned the language of quiet love, one built not on possession or sacrifice, but on presence. Li Qing brewed coffee in the mornings and pretended it wasn't too bitter. Mo Ran started cooking dinner and pretended not to laugh when Li Qing insisted on helping. They talked about the past, yes, but it no longer haunted them. "I think we were meant to meet again," Mo Ran said one night, his voice soft against the hum of rain. Li Qing turned his head, their fingers still intertwined. "To finish what we couldn't before?" "No, to begin," Mo Ran murmured. Sometimes, Li Qing would still wake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, heart pounding with echoes of a sword through flesh. Every time, Mo Ran would be there, pulling him close, pressing a kiss to his jaw until the shaking stopped. Other times, it was Mo Ran who woke gasping, remembering his own death, the fire, the cliff. And Li Qing would whisper into his hair, "You're safe now. I'm here." They loved each other in fragments, through touches, through silence, through the simple act of staying. And little by little, the ghosts grew quieter. On one rare, clear morning, Li Qing watched the sunrise with a cup of coffee in his hand. Mo Ran came up behind him, wrapping his arms around his waist. "Sunlight suits you," Mo Ran murmured. Li Qing turned slightly, his voice low. "I used to think I didn't deserve it." Mo Ran smiled against his shoulder. "You don't have to deserve it. Just take it." Li Qing reached down, brushing his thumb over the scar that still marked Mo Rant's shoulder. "You're my light," he said quietly. Mo Ran looked up at him, eyes soft, shimmering. "And you're my home." Li Qing kissed him, slow, lingering, gentle. There were no vows spoken this time, no blood oaths, no promises of eternity. Only this moment, this breath, this love rebuilt not from ashes, but from forgiveness.